Hi, I'm Jeannine Amber. I'm a journalist and book collaborator, and I'm here to talk about that writing life. So, thank you for tuning in to So Booking Cool.
So fucking, so fucking, so fucking cool.
There's so motherfucking cool to listen to so fucking cool.
Welcome to So Booking Cool, it's Jewel B. In this episode, I chatted with a professional who has been helping people tell their stories for more than 2 decades. She's a multi-award-winning journalist, including a Front Page Award, 2 Henry Luce Awards, a GLAAD Media Award, a Maggie Award for Media Excellence, 8 Salute to Excellence Awards from the National Association of Black Journalists, and 10 New York Association of Black Journalists Awards. She's held senior editorial positions at Vibe and Village Voice. For over 20 years, she's worked at Essence, both as a contributing and senior writer. She's also written for Time Magazine, Glamour, BET's online sex column, and The Source, just to name a few. She's educated both graduate and undergraduate journalism students. She is a wide-ranging media consultant, and she is a book collaborator of many titles, including Rabbit, a memoir by Patricia Williams, which was nominated for the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Literature. It was also among the list of Amazon's Best Biography or Memoir of 2017, and Shonda Rhimes called it a must-read. She co-wrote Nobody's Victim, Fighting Psychos, Stalkers, Pervs, and Trolls with attorney Carrie Goldberg. This title was named one of the best nonfiction books of 2019 by Esquire. In 2013, she collaborated on Love Him or Leave Him, but Don't Get Stuck with the Tag by award-winning comedian and talk show host Lonnie Love, and now Lonnie's new book, I Tried to Change So You Don't Have to, True Life Lessons. In this episode, here is Jeannine Amber. Stay tuned for our conversation right here, only on So Booking Cool. Hello, Jeannine.
Hi, thank you so much. That sounded very impressive. I appreciate that. Thank you for the welcome, and thank you for having me.
Of course, I had to get it right. You've had an amazing career, and just to have that recognition. First of all, how does it feel to be recognized for your work? Even Alicia Keys, credits you saying calling her a girl on fire in a profile that you wrote about her, which inspired the title and her album and everything. So what is that like to have this respect for so long throughout your career and continue to have it? When did you first start to notice that your writing was having impact?
Um, it's funny because when I became a journalist, I just I really just liked interviewing people, and I wasn't really crazy about the writing part. This is sort of the cost of admission. You couldn't really interview people and then just leave, that you had to do something afterwards. But that was it to me. It was the writing and then the telling the story. And I used to, when I first started, I would get so kind of anxious when stuff would actually come out in print. I've never read anything of mine actually in a newspaper or looked at a book once it's been published, because that side of it, the after part, makes me super anxious. So I was always very disconnected with the effect of my work, until this one day I got an email from somebody, and they had gone onto my website and they were looking for a story, and they said this story is missing a page, can you send it to us? And it was a lawyer, and the piece that they wanted the missing page from was a story I had done about homophobia in Jamaica. And I had done a piece particularly on a man whose life had been threatened because he was gay, and I spoke to him and some other people, and I really sort of explained the situation they were in. And the person who was missing the page was a lawyer, and he said that article was being used as evidence in an asylum case for one of his clients who was seeking asylum, because his life was in danger. And I was shocked. And he said, yes, it's used in many of these cases. And I thought, this is it. You never see the reactions. I would send my stuff out into the world, and I rarely paid attention to what was happening afterwards. But that, to hear that someone was using it, hopefully to, help save someone's life, that was the first time I really felt like it really matters. And I've had other comments like that about other stories. Somebody contacted me a few years ago about a piece I had written in the 90s. And she said, I still have it and I still read it, and it really has helped me get through. So you never know the full extent of the effect that your work has on other people, but just those moments, that's like what I live for. It's fantastic. So I've gotten over all of my anxiety about like, oh, I've published something, and now I just hope that it makes a difference to people who read it.
And is writing also a release for you at all?
It's really hard. It's like working out. It's like you dread doing it, and while you're doing it, and when you first start, those first like 20 minutes of working out just feel really, like, oh, I should just stop right now. But then you hit this point and you're like, oh my God, this feels fantastic. I'm in the groove, it's moving, it's coming together. And yeah, afterwards, and then when you're done, it can be really cathartic or really gratifying, but it's not easy. That's the downside.
Yeah, what's some of the things that just doesn't make it easy?
Well, I think, and I know I'm not the only writer who struggles with this, because I've talked to other writers, but sometimes after you've done all your reporting, you've got to figure out how to put it together. And I can usually figure out the lead, because I've actually tricked my father, who's also a journalist, taught me, which is the lead of the story. If you're trying to figure out what it is, imagine yourself rushing into a room, and what is the first thing you're going to say about the thing you're reporting on? So if you are reporting on a fire, you rush into the room and say, oh my gosh, this building's on fire. There are 3 people still caught on the 3rd floor. You know what I mean? Like, somehow the most important thing, the part with the most drama, that's the lead. But then you got to figure out everything after that. And the longer the story is, the harder it is to figure out, okay, what comes first, second, third, etc. How do I put this together? It's like a jigsaw puzzle. So it's like you have all the pieces in a box, and someone shook up the box, and then you have to put it all back together. And there are all of those things that you see sometimes in the movies. You have people with like index cards all over the place. That's real. Like, you have to figure it out, because there is an order in which the pieces go that make the most amount of sense. They make it easier for the reader to follow the story, but they also give the story like momentum and propulsion and a suspense. You can tell the same story many ways. So that's the job of the writer, is to figure out, how do I get this story on the page in the most interesting way?
Wow.
That's hard.
Mm-hmm. So what were some of the lessons that you've learned early on in your journalism career, and even journalism education, that you would caution like other journalists about, especially rising ones?
Okay, the most important thing is give yourself enough time to edit. People, because a lot of times I'm working with students, and they sort of write their first draft, and they only give themselves enough time to write that first draft. The first draft is, and for me anyway, it's kind of garbage. So it's just where you're getting stuff out there. And I would say for every, say, 1,000 words that I write that are finished, I've written another 3,000 words of just wandering all over the place, not knowing exactly what I'm doing. Sometimes those words make it into the final draft, and sometimes they're just me thinking through how to get to this final draft, because the final draft should be tight and concise and get you to the point quickly. But that's not how stories come out. You've got to sometimes wander down the wrong path before you realize that you're going in the wrong direction. So, so let's say you have 10 hours to accomplish a piece of writing. You put aside, say, 3 for the first draft and 7 for the edit. It takes longer to edit if you want to have something really good than it does to actually get the first draft done. And editing isn't a one-time thing either. This is something I taught my students. You do your first edit for structure. Like, is this the right order for these blocks of information and this narrative thread? Is this how this goes in order? And then the second edit is just, let me look at all of these sentences. Is this the best way to say this? And then the third one is like, is this the right word? Is this the right adjective? You've got to get narrower and narrower in your focus, but you can't read for vocabulary at the same time as you're reading for structure, because your mind doesn't, well, mine doesn't anyway, work like that. I've got to do it one at a time, and it takes a long time. So give yourself enough time to edit. And when you're finally finished, read it out loud. That's where you will notice that you don't have the right punctuation. Like a big pet peeve of mine.
And along with reading it out loud, do you think that it's also useful to have another pair of eyes go through it?
Yes, that's hard to get sometimes. When I first started out, I had a friend and we would read each other's work all the time. I read everything she wrote. She read everything I wrote. And that was, it's like a buddy system, but especially when you're starting out, you definitely need another set of eyes. Ostensibly that's what your editor is for, but it's good to have another set of eyes even before it goes to your editor. So yeah, as many sets of eyes as you can get on something, the better. And again, those readers aren't just to tell you that it's great. Like that's not really going to help me improve it. I want to know, what can I do to make this better? Was there anything that you read in here that made you have a question that I didn't answer? Is there anything that wasn't clear? Is there any part of this that felt like it was too slow? Like, where is it that I can do some more work to improve? That's what the second set of eyes is supposed to do. It's tell you what to improve, not how great you are. Although that's nice to hear.
Oh, I love that. You just I'm listening to you and I'm getting more ideas for questions. You mentioned, sometimes another reader can point out whether or not there are slow moments in the article.
Yeah.
So I want to know, with any writing, when it comes to articles, books even, there should never be any filler. Do you think that?
Well, okay. I really thought a lot about these things. So that is a good question. You have to ask yourself when you're writing, what is the purpose of this detail, right? Every detail, every bit of dialogue, every anecdote should serve a higher end, right? So what are you telling the reader by including this? This is really important in memoir writing because, our lives are filled with, like, if I wrote everything that happened to me, I would have it would be endless. And that's true of anybody. You would have books that would be too long to read. You have to choose the details wisely. And so in a large scale for a memoir, it's like, am I going to tell which story from the childhood helps illuminate this particular issue? So I tell people, like, you have to reverse engineer it. What's the point you're trying to make? That you felt unloved as a child, that you felt that you didn't have enough control, that you always, whatever it is, what is the point you're trying to make, and then what is the story that is going to make that point, to illustrate that point? I don't need to know everything that happened. I need to know the one thing that then I come away, from the chapter, whatever, and say, oh, I get it. She felt like she didn't have any control because of this thing that happened. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be a point. At the same time, that rule applies also to journalism. So if I'm interviewing somebody in their home and I walk into their living room and I think, okay, there are a million things going on here. I see they have books, and I see the color of their sofa, and I see their kids' toys on the ground, and I see they have a dog, and so in the part of the article where I describe, Mrs. So-and-so sat in her living room, which of those details am I going to include? I don't need to tell you everything that's going on in the room. I need to tell you that she's sitting on the sofa and there are children's toys on the floor, because I'm about to tell you something about how, she's working 2 jobs, and like this kind of shows that like she's kind of living, things are sort of haphazard because she's so busy or whatever. You have to pick your details wisely. So yeah, the inverse of that is if you put in everything, it's filler. It slows down the momentum of the story, and people don't understand why they're reading it. Too much detail it actually hurts the project.
Ooh,
It took me 20 years to figure that out. No, that's like a real thing though, that I think people, and too many adjectives can hurt a sentence.
Wow, yes. Do you think sometimes people, it's because they're focused so much on word count that perhaps they might be providing filler?
I think that people, okay, so, in journalism, we're taught show, don't tell, right? So we're taught, look around, make your observations, and put it on the page. What people aren't so, taught as often is like, that doesn't mean I need to see everything that you see. So if you're outside reporting on a fire, I need to see maybe that there are people milling around. I need to see the fire truck. I need to see the fire captain. I need to see the person, screaming out of the 3rd floor window. I don't necessarily need to see the guy down the street smoking a cigarette and the guy trying to get it all on his phone. The woman like walking her dog. Like there's a lot of stuff going on. Just tell me the details that'll help the story. That's the part. The editing is not what people always keep in mind. So I don't think it's about word count. I think it's just sort of, trying to be more descriptive.
Yes, absolutely. No, I just meant that I feel like some people think that, oh, I have to have this many words in the draft, so let me just,
Yeah, then find better information.
Yeah.
Like what is fantastic, what really great writers will do is they'll take however many words they have, and they will pack it full of information, right? And so that's the goal. The goal isn't to give me more words, it's to give me more information with those words.
Yes. All right.
You're like the most enthusiastic person I've ever talked to about this.
Oh yes, I'm loving it. Like I keep this going forever. So your mother is a retired English teacher and your late father is a legend in Toronto broadcasting. Do you think that their careers influenced your own at all?
Yes, 100%. My father, it was like watching the news with him every night. It was like watching television with a media critic, like I learned how to tell the story by not only seeing the work that he did, but also hearing him, when he would turn the channel and watch something else, like give me the blow by blow of what was not working on this other news station, or talking to me about, what he was reading in the newspaper. Like he would read the paper and then I like the sound of my childhood is my father tearing the newspaper to give me something to read. That was his thing. There were just like torn out articles all over the place for everybody about everything that he read that he thought we needed to know. And then my mother is like, she's like such a stickler for grammar that if we were watching the news, she would be correcting everybody's grammar because she couldn't tolerate hearing somebody use like a misplaced, the wrong pronoun verb agreement or whatever. So I learned that through osmosis, not at school. I just learned it through watching TV.
And what kind of stories did you like to tell and write about? when did you realize that these were the topics that you were interested in and the style of writing, perhaps?
Well, things changed. So when I first started, I was working at Vibe, and I also wrote for The Source. Those were primarily music magazines. So I wrote, about, like, I did a lot of celebrity interviews, and I like got to go out on tour with people and go backstage and interview people in their dressing rooms, and like that was all really exciting to me. But the stuff that really caught my attention was writing about issues that concern people who did not have a voice, right? Like, most of the people I wrote about when I was writing about celebrities had a platform to tell you what they thought. They didn't really need me to tell their story. But when I started writing about, victims of gun violence, or victims of, sexual exploitation, or girls who had been trafficked for sex, or, domestic abuse. When I started writing about those issues, oh, sorry, that's my phone. When I started writing about those issues, I thought, this is what I was meant to do. These are stories that really matter. These are stories that'll make a difference, because people will be able to understand these issues differently. And the people who are gracious enough to share their stories with me, have something to say, and I can help them get their story out. So that's when I realized I was, doing something that I really loved.
So at that point, is that the kind of journalism that you chose to focus on instead of doing celebrity interviews, or was there a balance? You did both? Because, by the way, you and listeners, Jeannine, you covered just about every beat under the sun, I feel. Like, except for maybe sports. Have you done sports?
I did interview, I've interviewed 2 sports people.
See, yeah, there it is.
I just interviewed a hockey player once, and I interviewed, and I interviewed The Rock, who I guess is not really an athlete, but he looks like one. I mean, he was.
Yeah, yeah.
But I interviewed him in his acting days, and I interviewed, oh my gosh, I forgot her name, Muhammad Ali's.
Oh, Layla Ali.
Layla Ali. Oh, and also one of the Williams sisters. But here's the interesting thing. My brother is a sports broadcaster. So our careers have collided exactly, I think, 2 times we interviewed the same person. But he does all the sports. And I guess, it's kind of, I can't do sports because that I make fun of him for doing sports. So I have to act like it's beneath me. He's my brother. No, we got that covered. I don't, yeah, that's the thing I don't do. But right, I've done a lot of health reporting, crime reporting. I still do celebrity stuff. And I do written about relationships. I've written a lot of parenting stuff. I've done a lot of sex reporting. Yeah, that's the thing about being a journalist, is like you can sort of go anywhere your curiosity takes you. I remember watching CNN when Katrina, it was in the first days of the flood, even before the levees broke. This is, in 2005. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what is going on there? It's a hurricane. And I emailed my editor immediately. I'm like, I have to get down there, right? Like, that is the impulse of a journalist, is like, you see something and you don't sort of sit back. You think, I got to rush in. I have to know what's going on. I want to know everything. I want to be in the middle of that. So, that's what's so interesting about it.
Yes, and you also did pieces about police brutality.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I interviewed Trayvon Martin's mother. I was one of the first interviews she had done. Yeah, that was difficult. And also, I interviewed another mother in Philly when Philadelphia had the highest murder rate, and I interviewed a woman out in Chicago who's dealing with gun violence in her neighborhood. So, trying to stop it. Like, I like speaking to people, not just saying this is the horrible situation we're in, but this is these are things we can do to move in a new direction. You know, like advocacy journalism when we're calling for change is something that's like been really important to me.
Calling for change, yes. You also have amazing work ethic. You know, you once turned in a story right after giving birth. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I am hoping that story is not on the internet because I don't think it was my best work. But I was pregnant, and it's funny that I forgot all about that. I was pregnant and I was freelancing, and like I was, was trying to make some money because I was about to have a baby, and I had this story due on a Monday, and it was going to be my last story, and then I was going to just like kind of hunker down and get ready for the baby. In fact, that night was going to be my first class. You know, you take those classes to like have a baby. And then on Saturday, so 2 days before, she was like, yeah, I'm ready now. So I went into labor. I had the baby. I came home. I had to get that money. So I sat down. The good thing is when the babies first come home, they just sleep all the time. It wasn't like, she was walking and talking. I just like let her sleep, finished the story, sent it in. The editor, when you're working on Word and you forget to save the document and then you email it, but you didn't email the final version, you emailed the version from before you saved it.
Yes.
Yeah, so because my editor wrote me back, he's like, this is really not great. And then I realized I sent him the wrong version, but I had the best excuse ever. I was like, sorry, I sent you the wrong version. I just had a baby. So, whatever. Anyway, that was that. But that wasn't like because I had I do have a good work ethic, but that wasn't really just about my work ethic. That was just because my kid was on her own timetable. I didn't have any control over that one. I didn't plan it. So.
Do you think that the more articles people write, it just becomes easier to bang out articles even under tight deadlines?
Yes. Yeah, 100%, for sure. I just got up this morning, I wrote something, and I wrote more in like the first hour of my day than I used to be able to do like in an 8-hour day. I mean, again, it's a first draft, so it's pretty crappy, but you write faster because you just have a better sense of things, which is not to say that it always works like that. There's still days now where I sit down and, the whole day goes by and I think, oh my gosh, I did 300 words, and it took me all day. Writing is weird like that. Some days it just doesn't fall into place.
And then you expanded your writing, of course, by also transitioning into book publishing. What has that experience been like, and how did it happen?
Well, books it's a whole different thing. And you think like, oh, I'm a writer, I have the skill set to do books, but they're not, it doesn't always translate. They are, you have to learn new skills. So the first book I did, I was still working at, I was a senior writer at Essence Magazine for 10 years. And I was working there and sort of doing both things at one time. And that was a little tough. But then over the past few years, as you see, the magazine industry really contracted. So the staff got smaller and smaller. And I was one of the people who, they said, we don't need a writer on staff. We'll just freelance out our, they don't have as many pages as they used to have. So then how did I end up? Oh, I heard this woman on a podcast and I thought, gosh, that story is so interesting. I bet that could be a book. And then I wrote another book called Rabbit. It was an autobiography of this woman who I heard on a podcast. Her name is Patricia Williams. She has a really interesting story. And then I worked with my agent, and I said, I want to do something completely different. Then I did a book with a lawyer, Carrie Goldberg, called Nobody's Victim. It's all about her work as a victims' rights advocate. And then just recently, I finished another book that is coming out now. I think it's out this week. And I was working with Lonnie Love,
Yes.
who you know from The Real. She is fantastic. Her book, which I have right here, I Tried to Change So You Don't Have to. Now, I had worked with Lonnie before when I was at Essence on her relationship and advice book. And so when Lonnie wanted to do this book, which is a memoir, of course, immediately I said, yes, I'm all in, because she is so fun to work with. She's fun, and you get to talk, and it's fun. The last book I had done had been kind of really serious and heavy, and I had to deal with a lot of really heavy issues, and then this was like a total change. So it's been great. It's been really, really great.
That is wonderful. I'm so excited for that title. What are you excited for readers to get out of I Tried to Change So You Don't Have to?
Well, Lonnie really wanted to share with her readers, and she has like millions of fans, and she really wanted to share with them this idea that you move into this world, and as you become an adult, you're told by a lot of different people and different forces that you are not good enough, that this thing is a flaw and that thing is a flaw, and you need to change this and you need to change that, and you will not be successful until you change all of these things about you. And this book is sort of her journey reconciling with the fact that that's not a good strategy, because it never works. She only found happiness when she started to like embrace the things that people used to consider her flaws and move forward. And so the book is really about her overcoming different hurdles, and there's some really interesting things there that I think her fans will be very surprised to hear. Personal struggles she's been through, especially in light of everything that's going on these days in the news. She's been through some times that I think were a lot harder than people would have, expected when you watch her on The Real, and she's so warm and loving and joyful. You don't sort of just get there by accident. She went through a lot of struggles, but she also came to accept that after trying to change, that it is better to embrace who you are, love your flaws, and I use flaws in quotations, and love will come to you. It's a really, really nice story.
Oh, that's wonderful. I so enjoy stories like that. And I do remember when
It's very, very funny.
Love or Leave Him came out, and then I was like, and I hope Lonnie does a book where it's also about her life, like that memoir. So this is it's right on time, would you say, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm going to get you a signed copy, because I'm like so excited that you have been waiting for her memoir.
Oh, that's so kind, Jeannine.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind.
Yeah.
And you mentioned in light of everything that's going on, I want to know, Jeannine, what is your advice for people during these times? Professionals, people, in the business of journalism, just creatives in general. What do you have to say to everyone?
Well, these are tough times, obviously, in every way. But my advice is, if you want real accurate information, look to the journalist, because that is the job of the journalist. And I know that there's a lot of people out there talking about that journalists are fake news, but really what journalists are committed to is getting the truth, right? So if you want to know about how COVID is spreading in your community, or what the latest science says, look to journalists, because that's what drives them, is finding out the truth. That's where you're going to get the best information. And then for writers out there, there are a million stories right now. There are a million stories in your neighborhood and in your life that you can find just by I don't want to tell people to just go out, because social distance. Be safe, but there's a lot of things that need to be written about now, and there are a lot of perspectives that need to be shared. And I think now more than ever, newsrooms and magazines and book publishers are interested in stories that come from people who they might not have been listening to a year ago. Like, our time is now. So, you know, make use of it. Like, take the chance to share your story, because you may have something really important to say, and now is the time to make sure you get heard.
All right. What have been the proudest moments of your career?
Well, I mean, that call from that lawyer about using my story in the asylum case, that was kind of exciting, even though nobody knew about it. It was just very quiet. I was the only one who was on the call, but that made me feel really good. You know, it has been, you know, it's always an honor to win an award. That's exciting. And when the book that I worked on with Carrie Goldberg, which is also a memoir, but it made it on the cover of the New York Times Book Review. It was on there with listed with a few other books, sort of, you know, talking about Me Too. That was very exciting. So, you know, I don't know, different things are kind of exciting in their own way, but I just like to look forward and focus on, like, the piece of writing that is not yet finished on my laptop that I need. Like, I just like to live in the moment of what I'm doing. So, you know, there have been moments that make me proud, but mostly I'm just excited about what I'm going to be doing next.
And on that note, Jeannine Amber. Jeannine Amber, it was such a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
You know, I greatly appreciate you coming on So Booking Cool, and would love to talk with you again in the future.
Thank you. It was great to be here. I loved your site, and I love that you were doing this. I love people who love books. Yay.
Yes, yeah, right? Books are special. They really are. I'm going to quickly squeeze this in. Do you prefer borrowing books, buying books, audio books? What's your preference?
Okay, so I have always been, I had a Kindle for a while, and I was like, this is not for me, because I like when I read a book, and then, you know, when you dog ear like the page because you're whatever going out and you got to come back to it. I like seeing those, and I like when I'm reading something and then I'm like, wait a second, is this the same person who she met like earlier? And then like scrolling through the pages and trying to, like, I like a book. But after many years, I finally got a subscription to Audible just now. And yesterday I listened to the first 3 chapters of a book that I actually have a hard copy of. And I thought, I get it. This is nice. So I think I prefer a hardcover, like an actual book, but I can maybe do an Audible on this side.
Got it.
Those
Okay.
my preferences.
All right. And how can everyone keep up with you and stay updated and connected?
I'm on Twitter, Jamberstar, JAMBERSTAR, and that's it. Yeah, I'm not really on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but I'm not going to tell you how.
Oh, you're on TikTok. Okay.
No, I just go on there to watch other people.
That's cool.
That's my favorite. I could spend hours on there.
Have you done any of the dances, like the Savage Challenge?
Yes, of course. I wouldn't record it. I just do it, you know, like the way an adult is supposed to, at home, alone, in my bathroom. So don't even see me. It's not for the public. Yeah, of course.
Jeannine, you are so booking cool, if I'll say so myself. And thank you to all the listeners. Until next time, so booking cool. Make sure you check out the books. All right.